everybody.
Good evening.
I call this first meeting of the Rotary Club of Colombo Port City to order. May I request everybody to stand up for the national anthem, please.
Sri Lanka, Namo, 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 Mata. Sri Lanka, Namo, 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 Mata. Namo, Namo, Mata. Sri Lanka, Namo, Namo, Namo,
Please do remain standing. May I invite Rotarian Dina Ali to read the Rotary Pledge.
Thank you, President. As a Rotarian, it is my purpose to regard my business or profession as my opportunity to express myself in service to society, as well as a mean to material gain, to maintain the dignity and worthiness of my calling by the acceptance and promotion of high standards and the elimination of questionable practice. To value success in my vocation as a worthy ambition when achieved a result of service to society, but to accept no profit nor distinction which arises from unfair advantage, abuse of privilege, or betrayal of trust. To recognize that any sound transaction must be governed by practice which brings satisfaction to all parties concerned, and to esteem it a privilege in my profession or business, to serve beyond the strict measure of duty or obligation.
Thank you, Dina.
Thank you.
Please be seated. A very good evening and a warm welcome to all invitees and distinguished guests for our inaugural meeting for the brand new Rotary year 2021-22. A very warm welcome to our keynote speaker, Mr. Skandakumar, the former High Commission to Sri Lanka to Australia. We are delighted to have you here as our keynote speaker for the first meeting for this new Rotary year. Very warm welcome, Skanda.
Thank you.
And a very warm welcome to our own past RI President, Trustee Chair K.R. Ravindran. Very warm welcome to you, sir. And also I would like to recognize the presence and a warm welcome to past District Governor Krish Rajendran and our own past governors, the District Trainer Imran and District Strategy Advisor PDG Dushan, and also recognize the presence of District Governor-elect Jerome Rajendram. Thank you very much for signing on all the way from UK. We are delighted to have all of you here, and also because it's we are attracting youth, and on that note, we have specially invited today our own DRR Akila Wijayatunga. Very warm welcome to you, Akila. And also we have invited DRR-elect Ahmad Hussain as well, and the entire youth join us and listen to our prominent keynote speaker who will be talking to us later on today on my country, which is a very vital topic during these days. I said, I think we are all concerned about the way the country is heading, and it's a very timely topic, and we are delighted to have Skanda to speak to us on my country. Thank you very much, and a warm welcome to all the other invitees, special guests that we have invited. I see over 122 participants who have signed on, and we have given special invitations to our fellow presidents and other Rotarians from different clubs, as well as so many other guests who are interested in especially listening to Skanda. So we have the privilege of having over 120 plus attendees today, and a very warm welcome. I hope you all will really enjoy the proceedings of our club meeting today. And without much ado, let me invite our Club Secretary Kasun to read the announcements. Over to you, Kasun.
Thank you very much, President Prashanta. A very good evening to all of you, and with all protocols observed, welcome to once again to the first official meeting for the year 2021-22. While I recognize the presence of all the dignitaries present here, a couple of small announcements from my end as the Secretary for Rotary Port City. Well, first and foremost, we, as you know, we are a club that does things a little differently. In a little bit, a link will be shared on the chat box of the group for you to mark your attendance. As you know, we maintain updated records in our club proceedings. So please, members, I kindly request you to take a couple of seconds and mark your attendance, because we maintain our attendance and recording as a professional organization. And adding to that, there is another small message, which is, I think over the last few meetings, we've announced that there are functional groups in the club where, based on your passion, based on your sense of volunteerism, you can actually be a part of the functional groups and the various activities that the club does. We have almost all the avenue groups that are currently functioning. So if you haven't joined any of the those subcommittees, please message where I can add you to the respective groups, so that you can network better and you can learn from, and obviously teach and share your experience in the functional group. For instance, we have the public image team up and running. We have the digital communications team that is up and running, and we also have our com service and our service team that will be soon installed, and the secretarial team is up and running. So all the club substructures are up and running. So I request all of you to kindly show your interest. All you have to do is drop me a message in the interest group which you like to be a part of, and then therefore I'll add you to the respective group and we can take on the club's proceedings. I think our president Prashanta has already shared the club's strategy and basic documentation such as the club citation with you. So please strategize accordingly and let's create something sustainable and something unique during the next year. And also another small message. A couple of members from the secretarial team will be some of the other information that we require. We want to make it a very personal experience and personalized exposure in our club. So they will be collecting some of the information such as your anniversaries, important dates in your life, so that we share and celebrate all our eventful journeys. Hopefully in physical presence, if things get better. But even not, we will find ways to celebrate them virtually as we go along. So those are the few announcements that I have. When you get the link on your chat box in a little bit, please kindly do mark your presence, and then we will take it from thereafter. And also there is another WhatsApp group that is created for entertainment purposes, which a lot of because it creates a lot of noise. So if you're interested in joining that, please let me know. That is where the informal communications and the fun communications happen. So these are the announcements from my end. I'll hand it over back to President Prashanta. Handing it over back to you.
Thank you, Secretary Kasun. Thank you for the announcements. And also, I would like to recognize the presence of our Assistant Governor, Past President Mahera Kant. Very warm welcome to you, Mahera. Glad to have you on board today for the meeting. Without taking much time, may I now invite PDG Dushan Sosa to formally introduce our keynote speaker. Over to you, Dushan.
Thank you, President Prashanta. A very good evening to each and every one of you who have joined us today for this meeting. I consider it an absolute privilege to introduce our guest speaker for tonight, an erudite scholar, Mr. Somasundaram Skandakumar. Skanda, as is affectionately known, is a graduate from the University of Colombo, graduating in mathematics and chemistry. And in terms of a professional career, he started his main professional career at George Stewart's in the year 1974 as an executive. And as you would see, in terms of corporate ladders and so on, he rose from the levels of an executive to a company director, managing director, and ended up as a group chairman in the year 2000. And in his capacity as the group chairman of the George Stewart Group of companies, he functioned in the capacity for 8 years. During those, if you could just mute the mics, that will help, please. Thank you. So during the 8 years that he was chairman, it's a recorded fact that the company and the group recorded its most successful years as a group of companies under his tenure as chairman. Since retiring from George Stewart's, Skanda wanted to kind of take it easy from the rat race or the corporate life, and he went and isolated himself he went into hibernation, one might say, in Haputale, in a nice little estate, in a bungalow that he had built for himself, and planned his post-retirement life. But in his post-retirement life, he dedicated himself totally to the underprivileged and was involved in a lot of social service and charity work. Amongst them, he was the chairman of a trust that was formed with a UK background, a trust that enabled 40,000 meals per day, every day, to be given to school children in the north and east. And then from there onwards, they went into water and sanitation, built a number of wells, and so many other facilities he built for the people of that area. And then subsequently, in his own area in Haputale and Bandarawala, Dietalawa, he started a trust in his parents' names. And this trust helps all university graduates from that area in the plantation sector with a stipend that will help them through their university career, and also invest money on all the people who have got critical illnesses in that area. He has also co-sponsored a school and children at the age of 5 with all the means that are required, the uniform, shoes, bags, food, everything else with another person. And he's sponsoring this school and has done a lot of work in the Bandara hospital. So his entire post-professional life has been dedicated to social service. And one might say he's a Rotary Club unto himself for the amount of work he's done alone by himself with all his partners. Whilst he was doing this, during the Yahapalana government in the year 2015, he was approached by the finance minister, or the external affairs minister, Mangala Samaravira, and about 2 weeks later, he was appointed as the High Commissioner to Australia. And having been appointed, the government then asked for his CV to be sent to formalize the appointment. So that was a bit of a humorous incident during that period, which we all knew of. And then he took on this diplomatic post as the High Commissioner to Australia. And it is a well-known fact that during that period, he was the best High Commissioner in the entire diplomatic services. And whilst in Australia, I think all of you who had connections to Australia during that time would know, he was regarded as the finest High Commissioner ever from Sri Lanka to serve in Australia. And he served the entire 4 years, and then he came back to Colombo. And we finished his tenure. I want to also now move on to another interesting area, that is sports. He's a royalist, having played a lot of Premier Division cricket. He captained the Tamil Union cricket team, and I had my personal interaction with him when I returned back from the UK after my own studies. I joined the Tamil Union to play cricket there, and he was my first captain at Tamil Union. And therefore, I have seen him at very close quarters, his entire leadership qualities, the way he mentored and nurtured some of the young players who were there, it was all in him. And just to give you a few snippets, during that period, he captained Tamil Union, won the Premier Division tournament, and 1 month later lost it due to a computational error in the point scheme by 2 decimal points. However, it was a great achievement to lead a team with no superstars playing in the era of Dulip Mendy, Roy Dyer, Ranjan Madugal, Aravind De Silva, Arjun Aranatungu, you name the lot, and to end up as table leaders in the Premier Division. And I must also mention, I would like to mention that a young boy who was just 15 years of age at that time used to come to the grounds with a rice packet. He went to the Veluwana Mahavidyalaya in the area, and he was Chandika Haturu Singh. Skanda personally took over Haturu Singh's career, mentored him right through his cricketing career to play for Sri Lanka. And today, as we all know, he's a leading coach who has coached the Bangladesh national team and the Australia and the Sri Lankan team. And today, he's in Australia coaching one of the state teams there. Skanda also, during the time I was there playing cricket, forged links with the southern part of Sri Lanka, with the schools in the south in a very structured and methodical manner, especially with Mahinda College Gaul. And he brought in the cricketers from the south to come and play in Colombo for Tamil Union. And 2 such cricketers who came from nowhere, Atula Samarasekar and Champika Ramanayaka, went on to play for Sri Lanka. And I must say, all that happened purely because of Mr. Skandakumar's personal dedication and passion to everything he touches and he undertakes. And I would also now complete this intro because I don't want to outdo him on his speech, taking so much time. The one final comment is that Skanda also served in the Sri Lanka Board of Control for Cricket. It was, as it was then known to current Sri Lanka cricket, was then known as the Board of Control for Cricket. And at a time when we are talking about interim committees, it is interesting to note that he was the first ever secretary of the interim committee that was appointed in 1999 due to all the issues at that time. So these problems, I know Mr. Ravindran was asking what's wrong with Sri Lankan cricket. It was there was also 1999. And because of the deterioration of cricketing standards, there was a special inquiry that was set up and a report, and Skanda was chairing that committee. And the report that came out is known in the cricketing circles as the Skandakumar report. Subsequent to that report, 2 years later, we were World Cup champions. So that is Mr. Skandakumar, and I have great pleasure now in inviting Skanda to deliver his keynote address. Skanda, over to you.
Thank you, Dishan. That was overwhelmingly generous. And I think you've already outdone me. Mr. President and members of the Rotary Club, Colombo Port City, and guests, Aibovan, Vanakkam, Assalamu Alaikum, good evening. It's a pleasure to be with all of you today, and more importantly, a link to Colombo Port City that carries no controversy. Given the ready access to information made possible by technology, I wondered what I could address you on that you were not already aware of. So I said to Dushan, if I may share my personal views of the country we love and touch briefly on my tenure in Australia, and thankfully he agreed. Mr. President, let me congratulate you and all members on the inauguration of the Rotary Club of Colombo Port City and wish you every success in your noble endeavors. I was born barely 2 weeks before independence, and like some of you listening in, lived through it all in my land of birth. What has transpired over those 73 years is common knowledge. So let me share with you why I love my country as I do. At a very young age, in a geography class, I looked at the world map to see where our country was positioned. I marveled at the sheer beauty of its outline and location, unmatched by any other country or continent on that map. I reflected on its priceless resources as tea, rubber, coconut, complemented by cinnamon, graphite, and gems, and the climate, the scenery, and the arable fertile land with ready access to water spread over a mere 55,000 kilometers made me feel that this was all a gift from God. I listened to our national anthem, and in particular the line, Ekamawa Kagudar, that we were indeed children of one common mother. I studied our national flag and reminded myself that the 4 bow leaves representing Karuna, Metta, Mudita, and Upeka meant love and compassion for our fellow beings. I took pride in our rich civilization, made possible by the teachings of Lord Buddha, who ended his profound sermons with the line, "May all beings be happy." Yes, the Lord pointed out even then that no one could build his happiness on another's unhappiness. The Lord's description of ego fascinated me as he referred to it as man's biggest enemy. Our ego is a film over our eyes that blurs our vision, and it is only when it is removed will we see our way forward clearly, the Lord preached. What more did I need to feel blessed to be born in such an awesome country? Came our independence, and the potential was huge. Regarded then as the East, the granary of the East, we had a beautiful horizon ahead of us, and what's more, a highway leading to it. And all we needed to do was to traverse that highway and follow the rules. Tragically, many in the driving seats had ego as their companion and turned to exits that were unnecessary and completely lost their way with devastating consequences. The line, "I stopped crying for a new pair of shoes when I met a man who had no feet," told me that this world we live in was only intended to be divided between the fortunate and the unfortunate. This biblical line was meant to remind those of us in the fortunate category to make a meaningful contribution to the lives of our fellow beings on the other side of the divide and help evolve an order of love and compassion to make the world a better place. However, despite these meaningful religious teachings, blinded by selfishness and insecurity, we began to divide ourselves on ethnic and religious lines with disastrous consequences. In Sri Lanka, we let it happen only because we fail to place our loyalty to country ahead of loyalty to individuals and have paid a horribly destructive price for it. Marginalization led to radicalization, while discrimination led to extremism. And Sri Lankans throughout the island, known for their gentle and caring nature, were in some segments being transformed by a feeling of rejection. Sadly, there was neither the wisdom nor the will to recognize and arrest this ominous trend in its infancy. Here, I would like to quote a line from Lee Kuan Yew's address to the people of Singapore to celebrate their independence in 1965. He said, "Today, we have the right of self-rule. You are free to speak in Mandarin, Malay, English, or Tamil, but never forget that you are first a Singaporean." I do not think I need to comment further on the profound nature of that statement or its impact on the well-being of that country and all its people. The real illiterates of the world are not those who cannot read or write. It's the educated who are unwilling to learn the lessons of history. My life has taught me many lessons. The most significant of them has been that when honorable intentions are matched by sincere actions, blessings from above are assured. My appointment as High Commissioner to Australia in 2015 was totally unexpected. 7 years into retirement, lost in the hills, a foreign minister whom I never had the opportunity to meet thought it fit to place his faith in me. That appointment gave me enormous pride to represent overseas my country, sincerely committed to national unity and equality. This was appreciated by our fellow citizens domiciled there, who came together as one during the tenure of my like-minded colleagues and myself. An invitation by the Australian government to our then Prime Minister for an official visit in February 2017, incidentally the first in 65 years, was followed by one similar to our president just 3 months later. While that visit was the first ever official visit of a president of our country to Australia, the fact that it followed just 3 months after the one by our Prime Minister was unprecedented in Australia's diplomatic relations and demonstrated the esteem in which Australia held us for our commitment to national unity and the friendship built over the decades on mutual respect and trust. That year was further blessed by reciprocal visits by the Prime Minister and the Foreign Minister of Australia, a celebration of our 150th anniversary of the tea industry at Parliament House, when both houses were in attendance, a blood donation program by over 100 Sri Lankans domiciled in Canberra to commemorate 70 years of diplomatic ties, and finally, after 2 years of lobbying by the High Commission, the return of Sri Lankan Airlines to Melbourne. Yes, it was indeed a diplomat's dream year made possible only by the blessings from above. Australia, a country 100 times the size of Sri Lanka, with nearly the same population as ours, was indeed a revelation. The rigid application of the rule of law and mutual respect amongst the many diverse nationalities, ethnicities, and religious faiths has made it one of the most sought after countries to live in. And this, mind you, for a country that was openly racist until 1973, when the White Australia policy was abolished. That decision demonstrated a nation's humility to accept its fault and the courage to make the change. The ensuing benefits have been amazing. Another landmark event in Australia's history was the apology tendered to the Indigenous people in 2008 for the discrimination and cruelty inflicted upon them for over a century. One has only to read the text of that apology, which is engraved and prominently displayed in the foyer of the Foreign Office in Canberra, to understand the extent of the remorse that was felt. Yes, my friends, birth is not a choice, but a chance. To put it in the words of Warren Buffett, the American billionaire, it's an ovarian lottery. It is therefore unacceptable that any human life should be discriminated against on account of an event over which he or she had no choice. So if ever we feel inclined to look down on a fellow being, let it be that we did so only to raise him up. I was privileged in my education, both at Royal College and the University of Colombo, an education that took me not only to the top of the private sector, but quite unexpectedly, also the country's diplomatic service. I never forgot what I owed my country for that education. And so, after serving the oldest business house in Sri Lanka, George Stewart's, for 35 years, a company that historically valued its integrity above everything else, I walked away from commercial life on retirement at age 60 in 2008 to devote the rest of my life to provide opportunities for the less privileged in whatever modest way I could. Thankfully, helped by generous, like-minded friends, both here and overseas, we have been able to support in a meaningful way education, nutrition, food for the destitute elderly, farming, access to water through wells, among other needs for those in that category. The pandemic posed its own huge challenges, particularly to those daily wage earners. When you realize that the daily wage just about meets their daily needs, you can well imagine the impact of prolonged lockdowns on the lives of their families. We were happy to alleviate that suffering to an extent. With government hospitals converting to treat patients, COVID patients, two groups I'm privileged to be associated with came together to respond to appeals from these hospital authorities to raise funds and to purchase urgently needed equipment for both Jaffna and Bandarabala hospitals. So to the emerging generation in particular, whose entire life is ahead of you, let me remind them that ours is a country still gifted by God. All we need to do to invoke the blessings is to act honorably, with integrity and sincerity. Remember the line from Abraham Lincoln's letter to his son's teacher. Teach him that it is far more honorable to fail than to cheat. Our loyalty to our country must always supersede our loyalty to any individual. Also remember that humility is the true hallmark of greatness. Do not be misled by anything else. Lord Buddha preached moderation and stressed the impermanence of life. Each of us will reach a phase when our physical and mental faculties decline as we prepare to exit our time on earth. At that stage, our only companion will be our conscience. The more at peace we are with it, the more serene will be that departure. And no amount of material things will ever buy that peace. Show your appreciation of life by bringing an additional language for communication, the language of compassion, which in Mark Twain's own words is the one that helps the blind to see and the deaf to hear. Then the blessings will be yours. May God bless our beautiful country and all her people, Thank you.
Thank you very much, Skanda. Yeah, while I was listening to you talking so passionately about my country, and I was feeling little blurred vision, and then I realized you have teared my eyes. It is indeed touching, and I hope you would wait for some more time and let our attendees ask any questions, and I hope you would be delighted to answer those questions.
Certainly. Thank you.
House is open for questions, and please make use of this time to ask any question that you would like from our keynote speaker. Over to all the participants, please.
Skanda, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I'm Deva.
Hi, Deva.
How are you? Just a
good, thank
simple question. You spoke
Yes.
of the potential, but do you see a way out from where we are? And if so, how?
You see, I'm a firm believer in the hand of providence. You see, when the central bank bomb exploded and George Stewart's building was completely destroyed, we were given up for lost. But it was faith and resilience that saw us through. Potentially, the Sri Lanka is still God's own country. All that it needs is to be able to invoke the blessings that are needed for us to grow with prosperity. And that can only come when there is mutual respect and trust. And more importantly, and this is very important, more importantly, that we can actually care for our fellow human beings on the basis of equality. Because, you know, no country that I know of has ever fulfilled the true potential of its independence if that independence did not embrace each of its citizens equally. Because everyone has got to stand up and say, I'm proud to be Sri Lankan. And if you feel alienated, you know, you're not going to be able to do that with your heart. And that's why I said in my speech that Lord Buddha concludes all his sermons with the line, may all beings be happy. And when that hand of providence does bless us, you will see amazing transformations in all that is natural. That's my firm belief.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any more
Hi,
questions?
sir. Hi, sir. My name is Ahmed from Rotary.
Hi, Ahmed.
I just want to know a small question about how you came into the path of being an ambassador for Sri Lanka or a high commissioner for Sri Lanka. How did that path create? How did you start on with your journey that way?
You mean how I was appointed or how I progressed
how
in
you-
Canberra?
How you were appointed, as in like how you stepped into
Okay.
the path of being an ambassador.
Okay, let me tell you something. Now that you asked the question, it's not something that I've shared publicly, but you know, I told you that I was happily retired and doing my social work up here. And then one particular day, just after the former president was elected, it was in January of 2015, the day before independence, I distinctly remember the day, on the 3rd of February, I was up here in Haputale, and then I had a call from a friend of mine, Malik Samaravikrama, who said, Skanda, there's someone who wants to talk to you. And this gentleman came online and he said, Mr. Skandakumar, this is Mangala Samaravira. I said, good evening, Minister. He said, we know you're doing a lot of social work, but we would like you to come and do some work for us. And my reply was obviously to say, I'm very honored, Minister, but what do you have in mind? And he said, we would like you to go overseas. To which I responded, Minister, I need to be honest with you. I have been retired for 7 years. And he chuckled at the other end. And and just said, it's not a problem for us, and rang off. And I'll be quite honest, I didn't take it very seriously. And then I went about my work. And then 2 months later, I received a letter from the Foreign Ministry to say His Excellency the President has recommended the appointment as High Commissioner to Australia. And the next line, which said that please send us your CV to initiate the process. And at that stage, I rang him and I thanked him profusely. But I said, Minister, you have to do something for me. He said, what is it? I want you to give me a professional deputy. You see, diplomacy is one thing. I mean, we can handle it, but there are so many protocol procedures and all the attendant things that go with it that can only be followed up by someone with experience. And I tell you, he gave me the best. A lady by the name of Himali Arnatilaka, who's now ambassador in Nepal. And she was impeccable and very professional. And then on my first day, if I may be allowed to continue, I looked at the 16 people at the Canberra mission, and 32 piercing eyes were staring at me, wondering what this political appointee might be like. And all I said to them was, we are here to uphold the dignity of our country. Each one of us is an ambassador. It's just that we have separate designations. I've been designated High Commissioner. Madam Himali is Deputy High Commissioner. Then I looked at the accounts officer and said, you are ambassador, accounts officer. Then I looked at the chauffeur and I said to him, you are ambassador chauffeur. And then I looked at the caretaker and said, you are ambassador caretaker. The impact was unbelievable. There was suddenly a sense of belonging, that the High Commissioner was not one who was going to sit on a pedestal and be virtually inaccessible. And every event we staged at the mission, starting that very year, starting from Vesak to Ramadan, which was celebrated for the first time at the High Commission, Deepavali and Christmas, the staff rallied round to such an extent that the community was absolutely amazed. And then it became infectious. And the community started coming together. And I was blessed with excellent consul generals, both in Sydney and Melbourne. You know, Lal Vikramatunga did a sterling job in Sydney. Lal, as you know, was Lasanta's brother. And in Melbourne, we had Prasanna Gamage, equally outstanding, who is now our ambassador in Vietnam. And then honorary consuls in the state of Queensland, South Australia, and Western Australia, all of whom sang out of the same hymn sheet. And one of, I think, our biggest achievement was the way we brought the communities together. So all it takes is just a word of kindness and a show of respect. And what you can achieve is truly amazing.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Hi, Skandakumar. I'm Thanuj Edward. I have
Hi.
a question for you. We are vivid lovers of cricket. Like, you know, to be very honest, I've not watched Sri Lankan cricket or cricket matches for about 5 years now because I have seen cricket.
That's very
So,
negligent of me.
so we have 122 odd people here. So what do you think, rather than not watching cricket because of the current situation, what do you think we could do to bring back the spirit of cricket to Sri Lanka and make us win? What is wrong with our cricket?
I don't think there's anything wrong with our cricket. Let me share something with you. Dushan referred to the first ever interim committee in 1999, okay? And that first ever interim committee came in at a time when all our icons were retiring. Arjuna had exited, Aravind had exited. And we brought in Sanat Jayasuri as captain and a very young, raw side, but talented. But there was a sense of professionalism in the way we administered the board. There were just 5 of us. Rianji as chairman with an excellent background as being head of Hat National Bank. He provided the leadership. I was honorary secretary. Then there was Michael Tissera, Siddharth Bettumani, Kushal Gunasekara, and Ashanta Dibel. And 5 of us ran the board for 1 year. We brought in changes. you see, the credible nature of the people at the top always reflects on the well-being of the cricketers. I'm not casting aspersions, I'm not passing judgments, but if you only look back, you know, you're seeing debates in Parliament about corruption in the cricket board. You're reading articles in the newspapers about corruption in the cricket board. And these are monies that are being made by the players through their performances. And what right does any honorary office bearer have to tamper with those funds? And there is no accountability, which is a great tragedy, you see. And that is why I say that when you hold honorary office, you must remember that the real meaning of honorary office is office with honor. And sadly, we don't see that. And also, I do not think anybody should be allowed to overstay their welcome in honorary office. Let me share something with you. I served with Ian Pearis as president from 1989 to 1991 or till 1992, okay? And it was a very, very difficult period for Sri Lanka cricket because, as you know, the insurrections are on and there were also JVP problems and teams were too frightened to come to us. But finally, in 1992, we were able to convince all the test playing countries at the ICC annual general meeting that they owed it to us to return to visiting Sri Lanka. And in the next 2 years, all the test playing countries, including South Africa, visited Sri Lanka. Nanda Matthew was the sports minister. And he said to me, Skanda, please, I want you to continue. Because you see, the sports minister has the authority to extend honorary office bearers' terms in office. And what I said to him was, sir, I'm truly honored, but change the constitution and I will stay, but I will not overstay my welcome by your courtesy. I hope you understand, because there are other people who are equally capable, who must be given the opportunity to serve Sri Lanka cricket with integrity and with honor.
I hear you loud and clear. Thank you.
Any more questions?
Yeah, Skandakumar. Now,
Yes.
in terms
Skanda,
of sorry, in terms of economy, now how do, like, even with Australia, how this foreign affairs can work on, especially in terms of Australian courtesies? What do you think? How can it help at a moment like this?
Well, you see, our trade relations have been improving since 2015. And I know that there is a reciprocal arrangement that's in place following the high-powered visits of 2017, where identified products of Sri Lanka are now finding greater markets in Australia in return for, their wines and other products coming in here. But obviously, with COVID and the lockdown and the way the tourism industry has been affected, there are issues. But it is my personal view that all this will be put back on course. And, they have an excellent High Commissioner in His Excellency, David Holly, who's here now. And our relationship, I was also accredited to New Zealand and the Pacific Islands as High Commissioner. And New Zealand have now opened up a mission here. And their new High Commissioner has taken up his office. I don't think he has presented credentials yet. But although New Zealand is a very small country, there is a lot of help we can get from them, which can be pursued through the High Commissioner here. And also, the duty of our ambassadors overseas is to really follow up on those things. And I'm sure, unfortunately, no appointment has been made since I came back in 2019, April, except that Mr. Valyamuna went just for about 6 months, and then he moved away. So there's a huge challenge there and a void in Australia, which is not in our interest, because, we built up such a good relationship and a very strong relationship. As I told you about those 2 visits, which gave you an idea of the esteem in which we were held. And there is one other thing that I'd like to share with you, which may be a little out of context, but since you are interested in the game, you know that our cricket team came on a very short 3-match tour to Australia in February of 2017, when our Prime Minister was visiting. Now, there is a very prestigious match called the Prime Minister's Invitation 11 match, which is normally extended only to the team visiting for the full duration of the tour. But I wrote to the Prime Minister's office through the Cricket Australia and said, we are now in our 70th year of diplomatic relations, and our team is going to be here just for 3 matches. And I was wondering whether the Prime Minister would be kind enough to host an Invitation 11 match at the Manuka Oval. And it took about 3 months, and then it came back positive. And then Cricket Australia rang and said, High Commissioner, not only is he hosting the match, but he will be there right through the duration. And just after that, Prime Minister Wickramasinghe's visit was confirmed. So we had this amazing event at the Canberra Oval, where the 2 Prime Ministers were present, the Governor General was present, and the 2 Prime Ministers walked to the center of the pitch to toss for the inning, flanked by the 2 captains. And the Governor General said to me, High Commissioner, good on you. I've never seen anything like this. So you see, this is all about goodwill and how you build it and then cement it in mutual interest. And I must also share with you that the Sri Lankans in Australia are an enormous source of pride. They were to the High Commission, because they have all distinguished themselves in almost every conceivable field, whether it's the universities, where it's the colleges, where it's the field of medicine, architecture, accounts, information technology. Oh, and about 200,000 of them. And they really are a tribute to us.
Thank you, Skanda.
Any more questions?
Yeah, so Skanda, this is Dushan. Just maybe one question from me would be in order, I suppose. So what are your plans, Skanda, for today and tomorrow and the years to come?
Well, if you go by the Bible, it's 70. So I've overstayed my welcome by 3 years already. No, you see, like I said, I made a decision in 2008 that I would walk away from commercial life and try and do something meaningful in the interest of the underprivileged children. Because, this country, like I said, I love this. I love my country. And it has done so much for me. My education was entirely at the expense of my country. And so now it's payback time. And I know that I cannot adequately pay back that debt. But all I can do is to keep trying, because, you see so many children with equal potential as perhaps I may have had, but not the opportunity. And that's why I always say that the world was divided initially only between the fortunate and the unfortunate. So that those of us on the fortunate side of the divide can really contribute meaningfully to the lives and the opportunities of those on the other side who probably had the same potential. So that's the way I think we should look at life. And like I said, when the time comes for us to sit back, as it always will, and our brains recede and our body declines, and we sit there, and we should be able to look back and say, it has all been worthwhile. And that comes from sharing and caring and nothing else. Personal achievements obviously are challenged, and you've got to do that. But then, isolating yourself with that alone makes no sense. You've got to take others with you. And that's where the real satisfaction is.
Skanda, if I may, I have found you to be so inspiring, so educative, so illuminating. If all Sri Lankans were half of your philosophy, your outlook, Sri Lanka would be paradise regained. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Ravi. And that's what we must try and do. Okay, Dushani asked me what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. But whatever time that's left, that's something I like to focus on. And I think all of us can do make a contribution towards that. And for that, we have to place loyalty to the country ahead of loyalty to individuals.
Yes, Skanda, one last question from me. Looking at hearing your speech and how you have managed the international diplomacy at the highest level, I see that it's not just diplomacy relations or the ties between countries, but you have brought in economic prosperity, which is favoring both the countries. But we do not have that with other countries where we see there is a failure or something like that. And what do you think as where we have failed, and what is your advice where we can improve the diplomacy and bring in economic prosperity in a fair game, in a fair trade, not just skewed among to one particular country, not us. But so what's your view on that?
Well, you see, the diplomatic service is a very professional one. And my interaction with people who have come through the foreign service, who work with me, I was very impressed. And I must also tell you, very confidential, well, not confidentially, there are 120 people. You see, I went for 2 years, they kept me for 4, and then they wanted me to continue when I turned it down. And then I was asked, not offered, but I was asked, if offered, whether I would be willing to go to London from Australia. And I said no, for 2 reasons. One was because I wanted to come back and reconnect with the social work that I had planned from the time I retired from George Stewart's. The second was, when I looked at those professional people who worked around me, and I thought to myself, if I stay here, I'm 71, 72, by the time I finish in London, I'll be 74. I'm standing in the way of the careers of all these people who have committed their lives to the foreign service. So that's why I feel that there should be more focus on appointing people from the foreign service to the more responsible positions abroad, but the simple reason is that they're trained for it. And the political appointments can be made, to others, because obviously every government wants to have their people in certain vantage points. That's okay. But don't discourage or downgrade the foreign service. In the time of the late Lakshman Kadirgama, it was absolutely professional. And when Mangala Samaravid was there, I sensed the same thing. I could see how dedicated, how committed he was. And that is what is important. The focus is really on the well-being of the country.
Brilliant. Thank you, Skandar. So thank you so much.
May I just share a little amusing story with you before we go?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, this was, you see, the Easter bobbing was a terrible, terrible thing. Okay, and so I opened, the mission, we opened a condolence book that afternoon, and the first to come to sign it was Sir Peter Cosgrove, the Governor General himself, with his lady. And then after a few courtesies and things like that, and as we were walking away, he turned around and said to me, "High Commissioner, I'm truly sorry you're going." To which I said, "Excellency, I think I've exhausted my shelf life." And with a twinkle in his eye, he turned around and said to me, "Come to think of it, so have I," because he was retiring 2 months later. And then, just before he got into the vehicle, he said to me, "There must be quite a few farewells for you because you're leaving in 10 days, so let me wish you all the best." And then I said to him, "Yes, in fact, Excellency, there was a blessing arranged for me at the Cathedral Church." The Cathedral Church, incidentally, is the church in which all the parliamentarians have their first service when they start a new year sessions. So it's a very prestigious church. And I said there was a blessing that was arranged for me by the community, but I've asked for it to be converted into a multi-faith service. And he looked at me and he said, "Oh, well, that's very noble of you," and he left. Now, this was 3 o'clock in the afternoon and the service was at 7. Half an hour later, my personal assistant gets a call from the Governor General's office. And it says, the Governor General would like to attend the multi-faith service. And he would also like to meet the High Commissioner at the entrance of the church at 7. Now, the church was absolutely packed with Sri Lankans and distinguished Australians, maybe about 700. And I must say that when I walked down that aisle to take our position in the front pew, it did send a surge of pride through every Sri Lankan who was in that church. And that's the nature of relationship, that diplomats do try and cultivate when they are during their, with their postings.
Wonderful. Thanks a lot, Skanda.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking time and being with us. And I hope you will stay back after we terminate the meeting. Probably we can have, we can open the floor for a few more questions as a fellowship. So to propose the vote of thanks officially, may I now invite past President Gamini Saparamadu. Over to you, Gamini.
Skanda,
Hi, Gamini.
What a wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
When Dushan Sosa told me the first time that whether I would like to do the vote of thanks, I was delighted. But then Dushan, forgetting that he told me the first time, he kept on telling me 3-4 times, but Dushan was of the person that was most excited of you coming to deliver this speech. Dushan repeated the same thing so many times ago. I knew, okay, there's something good happening here. Skanda, it is actually a pride and privilege for people to listen to sincerity at least once or twice in their lifetime. I heard it today from you. And I saw it written all over your face, the truth and what you have been through. And when you say that my country, it's a nice wake-up call. Your presentation and how you presented it, and also your sentiments I saw all over your face. And it's a nice, pleasant wake-up call to all of us, for us to realize at some point of time that it's not only believe in my country, but to action it. But we all like, in the sense that, I have met so many friends who are now domiciled and, who are permanent citizens of various countries, who sit the main chair and start criticizing this country without contributing anything towards the progress of this country. And to them, of course, they hear a mouthful from me when they talk ill of this country without even contributing a simple penny into the progress of this country. But however, it is very noble of you to have done that entire circle and to come back to where you belong. Where you belong.
Thank you.
I sometimes, while I was listening to you, I heard a nice narration of the fish salmon, how they are born in a river and they swim to the sea and then come back to where they were born to lay their eggs and propagate their generation. And you have done exactly the same. You come back to where you belong. And that is probably the reason that most of the people, most of the Rotarians and most of the Sri Lankans who have stuck back in this country, when we had all the opportunity of running away and looking for new pastures. But I'll tell you, those who went for new pastures, they're second-class citizens. And we are first-class citizens still in this country. So when you said that my country and how much you love this country, and also with that narration, it makes me very happy. I'm sure all the Rotarians who listen to you will be very happy, and those who would have the opportunity to listen to you after this on the same link will be delighted to do those. And I must also tell you, with all the ups and downs and the tragedy that we have gone through, this is still a beautiful place to live in.
Without a doubt.
We have nice friends, we have nice people, and if you don't have food in your house, you go to your neighbor, he would just let you eat something, at least give you something to drink. So it's a beautiful country. This is why I always believe, and I continue to believe, that a God is a Sri Lankan. because otherwise, where have we got this kind of resilience? You know, for the people in this country, it was not the fall, but with what wisdom and courage we got up to continue our journey. And we have
Sure.
done that. And it's a good nation, good country, with all little mishaps up and here and there. We're still good set of people. So Skanda, thank you so very much. Thank you so very much for being here and also adding a beautiful value to this evening. And we all believe that this is a well-spent evening with you. And
Thank you.
on behalf of
I'm
the
really
Rotary
honored.
Club,
Thank you very much.
on behalf of the Rotary Club of Colombo Port City, I thank you so very much. I thank all the others who have participated here, and I wish you well. God bless you.
God bless you too. Thank you.
Thank you, Gamani. To all the members who are present, we will keep the link for maybe another 20 minutes or so for everyone to mingle around and use this opportunity to speak to your friends personally. So for the time being, I officially adjourn this first meeting of year 2021-22 of Rotary Colombo Port City for fellowship. So, but still wait online and you can enjoy fellowship and have a chit chat. Thank you.
Krishanta, how do we do our attendance?
There's a link sent for everybody on the chat box. Just click that link and fill in your details so you will get your attendance mark. We have all youngsters and high-tech club. We are doing the attendance on the net as well. So you have the Google Forms where you can click on that and then you can enter your details and we are taking attendance electronically.
Thank you very much. But only thing you have to understand, there are other people also who have lived beyond their shelf life. So can you tell us also how to put our attendance?
Pastor Gamini, we are either way capturing attendance through the meeting itself. So I think it's a secondary validation, but it's important that we do that. So it's very simple as that.
Okay, right. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Krishanta, thank you for inviting. All the very best. Sayu Gamini.
Thanks, guys, Chris. Thanks, Raj.
Mr. Skandakumar, Niti here. Excellent.
Hello, Niti. My goodness.
It was an excellent presentation. Thank you so much for sharing all your lovely experiences with us. It's so nice, so refreshing to listen to you as always.
Thank you, Niti. Wonderful to hear your voice.